Hello, welcome back to the Bite Size Podcast. I'm your host, Lorraine Michaels, and today I have with me Maya Fields. And Maya is an assistant dean at a prestigious university, and she loves to talk about higher education, career development, leadership and mentorship, and effective communication. So this is right up our alley, and I am excited to speak with Maya today. Maya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Awesome. So tell my audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. So obviously you already know my name. I am Maya. It's so great to be with you all today. As Lorraine said, I work in higher education. This has been my bread and butter, so to speak, for about 10 years. So it's an evolving field, and it's one of those fields that everyone has a little bit of experience in, but it's always good to get different perspectives of kind of, what's going on in education, because it does affect us all. I have had the opportunity with being in education to really touch students and individuals in so many different ways, which I feel is obviously just such a blessing to be able to pour into individuals, whether it's a traditional or a non-traditional setting. And it's one of those areas that as things continue to change and grow and develop, me being on the administration side of things, I'm able to have some input with that, which is wonderful. And also have the opportunity to sharpen my particular gifts and talents in different ways, because in some avenues, education is a bit more flexible. So that's something that's really exciting about being in the field for sure.
That's awesome. So how long have you been doing it?
I have been in higher education a little over 10 years, just in various roles through the university, kind of start off and work your way up, so to speak.
Yeah.
So in student life, admissions, career services, and now my assistant dean's position that I'm in.
Awesome. So as an assistant dean at a prestigious university, what are some key responsibilities that you have in shaping the educational landscape and creating a positive learning environment for these students?
So on this side of things, I have the opportunity to really speak about curriculum that is put together for classrooms. So a lot of times when you're looking at curriculum, and this has been more so a hot topic for the last couple years, is you are essentially outlining what is going to be taught, like giving the bone, so to speak. Now, the instructor is going to come in and deliver the information in their particular way. But curriculum just kind of gives us those boundaries in the things that we want to make sure that we cover. So I do have the opportunity on the admin side of higher education to influence curriculum, which I think is definitely something I'm excited about. And I recognize the gift to be able to do this and provide that input, knowing that it will have an impact on students in the future. I work a lot in faculty development, which is great because it's helping the individuals who are actually delivering the information for the most part, helping them grow and gain different perspective and think about things in a way that's different than their traditional lens, because that affects really how you're going to give the information that you're giving to your students, because you're able to think about, hey, this isn't only from the way I view things, but I've been exposed to a perspective of how someone else may view things. So I want to make sure that I include this information also. The main thing about higher education is it's a platform or an avenue to teach individuals how to think. And so when you have an opportunity to influence perspective, you really have a stronghold in being able to get other viewpoints out into the classroom and help shape the way that other people are thinking and viewing things in the world.
Yeah. So are you making sure that the faculty is, because you had mentioned faculty development, so you're making sure that they're taking classes or they're up on current education process and what's going on and what's being talked about, taught about, so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's a combination of all those things. So they don't necessarily have to take like classes in a traditional setting, like you think they're going to a classroom and they're taking a test. But a lot of times in continuing education offerings, they may have to do like a little, like a tutorial online and maybe make sure they're brushing up on kind of what's going on in the particular realm of higher ed. Now, outside of just where you would think of like a structured learning environment, we also bring different programming around to make sure that they're exposed to current events and maybe what's going on. So we may bring a speaker in to come and talk about, how you want to communicate effectively with students, or how you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so you can be a great professor to your students.
Yeah.
And those types of programming are not necessarily in a classroom structure type setting, but it's really brought forth as like another offering, a benefit to the instructors, because no one, whether education or not, wants to feel like, oh, we have all these things we have to do, like check, check, check.
Yeah.
You want to have like a pot of things that like, oh, these are a lot of things that are offered and I can pick some things that are going to work for me. So that's really just how that entire deal is organized.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So leadership and mentorship, those are essential components, right? For personal and professional growth.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for individuals who aspire to become effective leaders or mentors in the respective fields?
Absolutely. The main thing I would say, if you're going to be a mentor and you're going to be a leader, well, let me just back up. A lot of times when people think leader, they're like, you have some individuals like, oh, that's not really me. I don't really know if that's really my spot. Let me just get everyone on the same page. We are all leading or influencing, which is essentially what it is, in some capacity. Rather you are a stay-at-home mom, you are influencing in your home. The Bible tells us, he calls the woman the keeper of the home, which means you are structuring if you have children, what they're taking in through their music, through their content. You are, planning out meals, the nutrition of your family. That's a huge deal. So I say that to say, a lot of times we can discount ourselves and just kind of count ourselves out before we've even got a chance to step to the plate. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. We all lead or influence in some capacity.
Exactly.
Aside from obviously making sure that you are in a place where you feel healthy, and I don't want to say whole or complete, because we're always growing. If you're a living thing, you should always be growing. You never arrive, so to speak. But you want to be in a place like where you're good, where you're feeling like you're not spewing out your negative things onto other people. Aside from that, if you're going to be influencing others, you need to make sure that you have a heart for people. This is so important. And it's just, I'm very passionate about it because we as individuals have the power to, with our mouths, you can be positive or you can be negative. You can tear someone down with your words. I'm sure we all can think of right now some very hurtful statements that have been said to us. And people say, well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. That's not true. Words hurt. Words can bring some tears. And so, are you speaking negatively? Are you speaking abusive language, which, that's in the word. Don't speak abusive language. Are you speaking positively? Are you encouraging someone with your words? Are you contributing to growth? So when you have a heart for people, that is going to be what guides how you interact with them, how you bring information to them, and really how you're going to shape each experience, because every decision you make is a value decision. So if I value people and say, you come to me and you're, I'm really, really busy and I have a project that needs to be done and we've been through training, and you say, Maya, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me again? Am I going to fly off the handle because I'm busy, or am I going to check myself, make sure I have a heart for somebody, and use this as a growth opportunity? Use this to, hey, sure, we can go over this again. This is, how we do it. But make sure that it's an opportunity to pour into you, to encourage you, not to cut that individual down in any way. So I think that's really what you want to make sure that you're always doing, is have the right mind frame, which is that heart for people, because it is an absolute gift to be able to influence others, which is leadership and mentorship. You are having influence on a particular individual. Don't take that lightly, and make sure that you are definitely rooted in wanting to do good for that other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said, it's important to, if you're in this role, you need to have a heart for people. Because like you said, it's such a huge role that these teachers have, regardless of whether you're a kindergarten teacher or a higher education teacher. You're pouring into these beings, these souls, and I love that you touched on, what it says in the Bible, the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:20, death and life are in the power of the tongue.
Absolutely.
And it's hard when if we are in a certain position, and there's other people that are, in our cohort that might not be believers. And so it's a really challenging place that we are in, where we need to make sure that we are living accordingly, and acting in according, to the word, and being a good example, without shoving it down someone's throat, right?
Yeah.
But actually living, breathing, walking, and being examples of what Jesus has called us to do and be, while respecting other people, because when we're in higher education, they're adults. They're thinking for themselves. They have their own thoughts, opinions, and beliefs. Do you see how that can kind of intertwine? Or I don't want to say how there's conflicting beliefs, but how you navigate that when you're trying to encourage the other faculty of, hey, this is, like, we know that is our principle. Like, we stand on God's word, right? But we don't force that on anyone else. How do you navigate that? Someone that might not be in alignment with that, but needs to understand the great role and responsibility that they have in pouring into these other people.
Absolutely. That's a good question. And I think even so, outside of higher ed, people are struggling just day to day with how to navigate that, not wanting to shrink back in their faith, but also, like towing the line with how do I move? How do I respond? Where is my place now in everything that's going on? And I will say, for the believer, Revelations tells us that times will become more divisive. So it's not getting better. We want to make sure that we are figuring out how are we going to navigate this. The main thing is, we are all here and we have an opportunity with our lives because it's free will. People are able to make their own choices. They take the information in and they decide to do with it what they will. But you can't necessarily force someone into glory, force someone into thinking the way that you think. You can provide the information, but, they ultimately decide what they're going to do. Even Paul talks about one plants, he's planting, Apollos waters, and God provides the increase. You can water without hey, this is, John 3:16. This is what you need to be doing. Your daily life should be a walking example of Christ. People most of the time aren't listening to what you say. They're watching what you do. And we have so many people who are, waving the flag for the Lord, but treating people like trash. You can't have, I'm so holy, but I have this great relationship with God, but there's no evidence of great relationship with people.
No fruit. Yeah.
It's conflicting. And so when we're talking about, how do I manage being in an environment where, maybe my faith is different than other people, you should be living a daily example of your faith walk. You are not forcing your views on anyone. You can still stand in your principles. You can still stand on what you believe in. I had a friend, and this is it's funny. Her mother was a principal. And so she was in a public school setting. So obviously she can't, bring scripture. But what she would do is she would write scripture on the board as quotes. And so she may put a scripture up there and she's not putting like, this is a chapter and, but it was just a quote. And so it's still good information. It's watering, I'm sure one of the students picked it up at some point and was like, oh this is the Bible, but it's still, that information can still be there without you feeling like you're beating the Bible over someone.
Yeah.
So, that's just really my thing is like your life it should be a walking example and you're not necessarily forcing anything. You can always provide information, but it's up to that individual to decide what it is that they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you discuss the significance of personal development in achieving professional success? What are some strategies or practices that individuals can incorporate into their lives to foster this growth?
Absolutely. I think probably one of the most important things is figuring out your gifting and appreciating the area of your gifting. One thing I found a lot, especially when I worked in career development, is, and it's no one's fault, it's just kind of the way of the world. We glorify certain areas and it becomes like the coveted role to seek. And it may not necessarily be your gifting. I say that to say, if everyone is a doctor, what street are you going to drive on? If everyone is a lawyer, how are you getting groceries from the grocery store? My point is, we all can't be one thing. We're gifted in a certain area, and there's not one thing that's better than the other. It's just the area that you're gifted in. So not only do you need to recognize the area of your gifting, because I ran into so many people who are like, I'm not good at anything. You would be surprised how many times I've heard people say that.
Well,
I'm not good at it. Yes, you are.
So,
recognizing your gifting and then appreciating that, not trying to fill someone else's shoes. I heard a quote years ago. Everybody's born an original, but most of us die a copy.
Wow, that's good.
And it's like, you can't be someone else. You have to be you. And the important thing about that to keep in mind is if you are stepping out of your area, you're gifted for a purpose to actually accomplish something. Now your thing isn't being accomplished because you're out of line. And so not only it's bigger than you, not only are you negatively affecting yourself, you are negatively affecting the other people who are supposed to be influenced by you. So when you think about, developing, especially professionally, things will line up and go more smoothly when you are in place, when you are where God has you to be. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice for anyone who is definitely seeking to move forward professionally is figure out your gifting, your area, your calling, and appreciate that. Don't try to be anyone else. Be the
Yeah.
best in that area that you can absolutely be.
Yeah. Yeah. I had on, I love all of that because I'm just like, oh, yes, I was just talking about that. Yes. It was a couple of weeks ago, and I had on a guest speaker, Damien Cook. He was talking about how his wife was saying about, in the Bible, it says that you all have your own gifting and you can't be something that you're not. And he said how she relates it to a body. We're all part of the body, right? And we all can't be an eye. Like, we can't be walking around as one giant eyeball. We need an eye, we need an ear, we need a nose. All of those things, they come together and they work together. And I was just talking about it. I think it was just on a podcast that I had recorded about exactly that, recognizing your gifting. And my gifting is teaching, encouraging, and pulling out the gold in people and helping others see their gifting and figure that out. And, one of my other friends, she's an incredible mom. She's not even a stay-at-home mom. She's a teacher, but she's so crafty. And she celebrates her kids so well. She decorates for holidays so well. And I always admire it. And it got to a point where I'm just like, I have to recognize that is not me. I am not the Pinterest mom. I am not the one that decorates, and it's not my gifting.
Yeah.
Glory to God that it is hers and she celebrates it and she walks in it, but I cannot walk in that because I will be doing the wrong thing, But yes, like, you very much have to be aware of your gifting. And I love how you put it, instead of like in the body, but in retrospect of the world. If everyone was a doctor, how would you drive? If everyone was a lawyer, where would you get your food? That's exactly it. Like, everybody has a gifting. And something that I've really been focusing on, because I don't want people, when they hear this, I don't want them to feel like, well, I don't have this big dream. Like, I don't want to save the world. I don't have this big idea. That's okay. Like, that is the importance, is finding what you're gifted in, because God created you divinely for a divine purpose. And there's no big or small idea. Just as long as you step into your gifting, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I completely agree. That made me think, when you said that, about, someone thinking maybe their area of influence is too small or not significant.
Mm.
I was having a conversation with one of my friends one time, and man, she said something that was just kind of like mind blown. I don't know if you've seen that meme, but that's how I felt when she said it. It was like a golden nugget. And so she was saying, talking about how we all contribute to a larger good. And she said, do you think Joyce Myers or TD Jakes, whoever, you think they got there by themselves? You know how many people had to pray them through? You know how many people had to encourage them along the way? We see them. You see whoever it is that is presenting as a large influence in your life. But don't discount the individuals who came along the way, who prayed, who encouraged, who fed, who drove them to events, who gave them gas money when they were broke. They weren't always on the mountaintop.
Right.
And those individuals all played a part. And had they not, just kind of to give a little bit more of a personal perspective, because we can all think of times where someone came and kind of just breathed fresh wind into us when we felt like, this is the end of the road. I'm tired. I can't do anything else. Had those individuals not come, will we still see the people that are large influences? Had they not been praying prayers of covering, protection, Lord, send them the right people. Lord, send them help. Lord, keep them covered. Had they not had those individuals each planting their little seed, we may not have ever been able to see them influence so many people that they influence today. So when you diminish your area or your dream, oh, it's not that big. It's not that important.
It
Yes, it
is.
is.
Yes,
You're
it is.
pouring into a much larger cause and purpose. So we all play a part. It's all important to make everything work. So I just want to encourage others today with that. Every little thing that you do, whatever it is you're called to do it as if you're doing it unto the Lord. It's all important.
Yeah, I think that's in Colossians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. 10:31, I think it is.
Mhm.
I love that. Can you speak more on career development? Like, how do you encourage the students there, and what do you do as far as walking alongside them, pointing them in the right direction, getting the right faculty in their lives? Talk to me a little bit more about the career development and your role and how you help the others.
Absolutely. So one of the things that was just kind of like an overarching guiding principle, so to speak, was you can't be what you can't see. A lot of times individuals couldn't see themselves being in positions because they didn't know they existed. They couldn't see themselves, using their gift in a particular way because they didn't know it was a thing. Like your friend who you mentioned was great at crafting. Someone, may have that skill and like, well, all I know how to do is make these wreaths. Well, there's someone who made the wreaths that we see at Walmart that we're buying, and they're mega rich,
Yeah.
So a lot of times we don't have the perspective or the vision for things because we've never seen it before. So one of the best things that you can do, and one of the things that I love to do, was expose individuals to opportunities that were available. Now, in a structured setting, that's going to come in the form of, do an informational interview, go find someone who's doing what you're doing and talk to them about it, and get their advice or their tidbits. So it may be that. It may be looking on LinkedIn and seeing some people who are doing cool things, and then, hey, look at what they've done before then, just to kind of get some perspective. But the main thing is providing vision, giving students just kind of expanded vision when it comes to what's out there and what type of things they are able to do. Another thing that's very important, or was very important with career development, is making sure that individuals understood that your experiences are still beneficial. Like nothing is wasted. So a lot of times we have a hard time looking at our skills as transferable skills. So we may think, and this is more so from a career perspective, I've never been an operations manager, or I've never worked in operations, so I can't do this. But okay, let's back up and let's think about some things you have done. You may not have had the title, but you may have been in an environment where you're structuring, scheduling for an entire team. You're making sure that you're the individual who has someone that's closing and opening. You have a system that you put in place to handle customer service so it's efficient. It's just not, the wild, wild west in here. That's operations. We have a tendency, and I say we a lot, just to, speak to the collective. If it applies to you, great. If it doesn't, that's wonderful. But if it does apply to you, this is the thing. A lot of times, we have an intention. Well, a lot of times we diminish our gifts. We play it down. We play small. And so we don't necessarily see how what we've done is useful in where you're trying to go. Keep this in mind. Nothing is wasted. Absolutely nothing is wasted. So make sure that you aren't discounting your skills just because there's not a direct parallel in the language. sometimes you have to be crafty and think about the ways that you've had experience in particular areas, but it wasn't maybe worded the same. And that's especially important. It's kind of funny now, but with career development, especially helping students with finding employment, because these days, I remember I used to see like job titles, and there are all kinds of things now, like director of happiness. Where have you ever seen a director of happiness
Yeah.
before? But I think even Disney has some really unique names for positions. And my point is, if you're always looking for like the exact title,
Right.
the way things are evolving now, you're not going to find it because you didn't have director of happiness on your resume 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you dig a little deeper, like go beyond the surface a bit, you can see that you've done some of those things before. So don't discount yourself. Don't play it small. Make sure that you're giving yourself just a fair shot at looking at the type of experiences you have and how they're applying to what it is you want to do in the future.
Yeah, getting creative.
Yeah,
Not
for
just
sure.
looking at it for black and white face value, but really digging, like you said, digging deeper into it and figuring out like, yes, you actually have done this.
Absolutely.
So with leadership, career development, financial aspect, and mentorship, what of those speaks more to you? What lights you up of those?
I would probably say mentorship, because it's
Right.
a growing relationship that
Mm.
both of you are learning something from. We
Oh,
can all learn something from
yeah.
everybody, even if
Yeah.
it's one thing. So, as a mentor, you're pouring into them. As a mentee, they're pouring into you. But both of you all are learning from each other. It's a continuous area, where you're able to see an individual grow in a lot of cases, which is
Yeah.
exciting to see someone grow and kind of walk into who they are and all the wonderful things that they're able to do in that area as they, just kind of move forward. And um, it's continuous, you know. It's like I said, if you're a living thing, you should always be growing. And a
Yeah.
strong mentor-mentee relationship is always growing. It's always evolving. It's always, developing. If you have children, just as an example, when they're young, they're asking you, to tie their shoes or give them some juice. But as they get older, they can now tie their shoes, but that doesn't mean they no longer need you. Now they need you in a different way. And so that's the cool thing about mentorship. It's like you are continuing as the relationship grows to be able to pour into them in a different way, depending on the stage that they're in their life. So I really enjoy that process for sure.
Yeah. Is that something, how do you facilitate that there in your role? Is it something that you seek out those relationships with other students, or is there something that's available for students that are looking either to be a mentor or a mentee?
So there are student programs that allow for mentor-mentee relationships just throughout the university. Not necessarily something that I've structured, but it is there. Um, my involvement with mentor-mentee at this stage, career-wise, is more so with faculty development. Maybe because if you think about faculty, you have individuals who are fresh out of college. You have some who've been a professor for 30 years. And so pairing them together is very beneficial to, for the more seasoned faculty member to help them navigate some of the initial speed bumps, so to speak, of becoming a professor. And the individual who's just coming in, like this is their first year, they help the more seasoned faculty member become more comfortable with the relevant things that are going on in the
Yeah.
classroom. So, it's kind of one of those relationships, again, where they're able to feed and learn and grow from each other. But that's how I handle it more now on the career side. But one thing I will say is that mentee relationships do not always need to come from a program. It doesn't need to be, a structured, the YMCA has this program. I got to sign up if I want to be a mentee. No, don't give yourself those limitations. You can connect with, women you meet at your women's group, somebody you meet from your Bible study, whoever you look at, and you even have admiration for things that they're doing, and you feel like, man, I can learn and I can grow and I can benefit from being around them. Talk to them, connect with them. It doesn't have to be through a specific outlined avenue. It's just mentor mentee is a big structured way of, saying we're connecting and we're growing and we're learning together. So don't let that language stop you from still taking advantage of those relationships in whatever area that you're in.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good piece of advice there. I had just recently heard on a podcast about how you can learn something from everyone and don't discount that. And I thought it was such a good shift in perspective, and such a good mindset to develop, that you can learn something from everyone, because there is something that someone, or I should say, there is something that everyone knows that you might not know. So everyone that you interact with or come into contact with, there's something that they know that you don't know.
Absolutely.
And if we develop that mindset, that open mindset, and that willingness to learn, I mean, you could only grow, right?
Absolutely.
Just like you were saying, it will only develop. You will only expand your knowledge, your mind, your awareness, your willingness, your
For
perspective. Sure. I can't think of anything negative,
Exactly.
So what was I going to ask? Oh, how do you personally continue to grow and stay motivated in this journey with education and career development? What are you doing for yourself to maintain that?
I'm a reader. I love to read. I can literally have 3 to 4 books going at a time.
Wow.
Because I'm, picking up, reading a few chapters here, a few chapters there, just about different things. So that's probably one of the largest ways that I grow. I was telling a friend, man, I developed a love for reading at a young age. I still remember in elementary school of winning this award for reading the most books. But I tell her, man, that is I feel like one of the most important things to my success as an adult is developing a love for reading. Mm-hmm. Developing that love for reading early, because first of all, if you are reading a good bit of the time, you're controlling how you're able to take in the information, how you're learning, whatever it is, you're able to bring that information in. But you're always growing because you're reading and you're learning new perspective. If you're, reading about different things that are out there, or you're reading someone's story, like I love to read people's stories, just to see like kind of how they were influenced or what shaped them and why do they think how they think, and so just that would be probably my largest area of growth is reading. And I have young children, so I'm always growing and learning from them because, through the eyes of a child, as they say. So, just being exposed to so many different avenues with them because they're involved in so many things. So I'm picking up something, from everywhere, just looking for those nuggets, having the perspective that you can learn something from everyone is helpful, because if you can learn something from everybody and you're excited about always learning something so that you're growing, you're looking for those nuggets, or you're looking for that information wherever you go, and you're just soaking it all in. And then when it applies, when it's the right time, you're like, oh yeah, I learned that. Let me deposit this nugget into you also. But yeah, for sure, I would say reading is my largest way, and then definitely just my kids. Oh, I learned so much from them. So
I bet. What's a current book that you're reading, and what has been the most impactful, influential book that you have read?
My current book that I'm reading is Disciplines of Disturbance, and it's disturbing, but it's good. And I don't know, it's hard to say favorite. But one of the ones I really, really like, and I recommend that everyone read, is a book called Just Mercy.
Just
Um,
Mercy.
mhm. It is an absolutely wonderful book, especially when we're talking about perspective and just how you see things. Um, that definitely will have an impact on you.
Mm, awesome. All right. As we're wrapping up, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Is there anything that you're working on, or you just want to encourage them, or what would be your final words to wrap up this episode?
So I would like to leave with you all that I am working on a podcast. So
Awesome.
if you want to come and hear more of my blabbering, this is this is the platform where you will be able to hear it. My podcast is Hey Hannah. We are on Facebook as Hey Hannah Podcast and Instagram as Hey Hannah Podcast. And just to give a little bit of information about it, no, my name is not Hannah. You're not on the wrong channel. You've been listening to Maya. But Hannah is my daughter who passed away last year.
Oh.
And so the reason for the podcast, or kind of the premise, is Hey Hannah is a platform where we'll have conversations that I thought I would have the opportunity to have with her.
Oh.
So we'll talk about all different kinds of things, because you
Yeah.
talk about all different types of things with your kids. So
Yeah.
it'll be therapeutic for sure. And, you know,
Yeah.
if anyone's experienced strong grief, I just feel like I'll put this out there. Premature death is a whole nother animal. So if you've ever been in a place of really, you know, dealing with a lot of grief, you know that it's a continuous process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I say that to say the podcast, there'll be a lot of healing along that journey
Yeah.
as well. But like every other thing, it's an ever evolving thing. You're growing in your grief journey also.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on. I would love to have you all join in and listen and just be a part of that also.
Yeah. Oh man, that's going to be beautiful for people that are going through that need that I guess that encouragement. I have personally never lost a child, so I couldn't yeah. That's tough. I can't even imagine. I can't. But I know plenty of people who have, and I've walked alongside their journeys, and they're all different. They're all
Yeah.
so very different.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is crazy, you
Yes.
know? So that is, I commend you for doing that. That's huge.
Thank
Putting
you.
yourself out there. That's very vulnerable. But I know God's going to bless that.
Thank you.
So that's awesome. So, Hey Hannah podcast, we'll make sure I'll put that in the show notes so they can
Thank you.
tune into that. Well, thank you so much, Maya, for coming on the Bite Size podcast and sharing about what you do and all the nuggets of information. I took a ton of notes. So
Good.
it's been amazing and an honor. Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It has been great. We had good conversation. I hope you all walk away with some cool little information, and you learned something new today too, because we learned something from everywhere, right?
You can pick it up.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll catch you later on the Bite Size podcast.